Around the Ozarks is now on your FM radio. Listen to Around the Ozarks mornings with Grace Gooley as I spotlight local people, stories, and podcasts, all while playing the country legends of the 90s and the hit makers of the 2000s. It's on the Ozarks' best country, 105.1 The Bull. It's time for Around the Ozarks sports scene, brought to you by Colton Steakhouse, Thompson Sales, and Deadeye Gun and Pawn in Sparta. Here's your host, Scott Puryear.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks sports scene. I am Scott Puryear. As always, big thank you to you for tuning in this week as we talk local, regional, national sports. We're talking girls high school basketball state playoff version this week with Marshfield Lady Jays head coach Trish Marsh. Trish, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me on, Scott. I appreciate it.
You betcha. This will be fun. We go way back to our days of you on the high school benches and then you over at Drury with me. We were together there when you were Niles' assistant, when I beat you in Pig one day in Weiser Gym, which I am 1-0 now, career against you, which I don't know. Is there anybody else that you know of that can claim to be unbeaten against you in Pig?
I don't know. If they did, they shot it the right way and did not do those granny shots. Come on.
I didn't know there were rules to pig or horse. Apparently
there should be. There should be. In your
world there are. In my world there weren't. And for those who are listening, if you've ever seen somebody chase somebody around a gym to try to get a rematch, that's what happened. And I was having no part of it. I was taking the victory and I was done. But what Trish Marsh does now is she takes the victories and moves on. Her Marshfield Lady Jays, a great segue there, by the way. Her Marshfield Lady Jays, number one ranked team in Class 5 in the state. They're in the state quarterfinals this Friday night against Elias Catholic out of Jeff City. It's a rematch, actually, of last year's state quarterfinals. And Trish, kind of give us a State of the Union address of where the Lady Jays are right now in your mind.
Well, I think we're in a very good place right now. We just finished up with, I think, the toughest district in Class 5. We had West Plains last week, Willard. Our district had 1, 2, and 6 in our state rankings. And so just to come out of that district is a big thing for our team. I feel like we're in a good spot. We've been playing very good basketball since probably the first of the year. We took 2 very bad back-to-back losses. And I'm not saying they were bad, but they were against very good teams. We lost to Stratford in the championship of the pink and white, and then we came home to face Rockbridge, who really, I think those 2 games really showed us where we were at. And, since January 5th, we've been on a roll. We've kind of won since then, and we've really played a lot of good programs that I feel like has made us battle-tested for this.
And you talk about that district, very impressive run through, especially the championship game, beating West Plains 65-51. I had watched them in the semis a couple nights earlier. A very good team that when they're shooting it from 3-point range, they're deadly, and they blew McDonald County out of the water in that semifinal as a result.
Did that hurt? Did that hurt for you?
It hurt a little bit. Yeah, it did. It hurt almost as much as when McDonald County blew a 15 or 16-point lead at Marshfield, the number one team in the state, and got beat. I didn't have a chance to ask Brad Shorter about that. I didn't really want to. But anyway, a very good West Plains team. You had to be impressed with what your girls put together last Friday night on the floor.
I was really impressed with our defensive effort. Nothing came easy for them. That was the lowest scoring night for them at 51 points. They're used to putting points up on the board. And I think we just locked in and went with the game plan. We got out and contested about every shot you could think of. And it was tough for them offensively to ever get in a rhythm. And I think the biggest thing that I can look back on that game after watching it again is just the team basketball aspect, because our leading scorer, Peyton Ward, who is averaging almost 21 points a game, had 9. And we had players off the bench, kids off the bench that came in and really stepped up. We had 3 people with 12. We just had a lot of balance, and it was really nice to see. And I think a lot of that is just that our team has had to grow a lot over the last 3 weeks with injuries to key players. About a month ago, Tilly Greenfield was out with a concussion for 3 games. And then more recently, we've been without our all-state returning guard, Quinn Aldridge, who's been out with a foot injury. She came back for the second round of districts. And so it allowed some people to gain valuable minutes and just gain that confidence going into postseason play.
You returned all 5 starters from last year's state quarterfinal team that lost to Helias, I believe 43-32. I believe you've been number 1 in the state poll from wire to wire. Is that correct? You haven't fallen out?
We have. We've had that target on our back since day one. And you know, I'm really proud of our kids for that's tough because you're going to get everybody's best shot. And I feel like we have. And every game that we step out, we've had an answer for most nights. And our kids, you know, we haven't talked much about that ranking because we talk about that ranking doesn't really matter. Yes, it's nice to have that recognition, but really the ranking that you want is the ranking at the end of the year.
And of course, a motivation for them getting to play the same team that knocked them out last year before you got to the Final Four. Looking at Helias Catholic, they're 12-15, which is very odd for a team to be in this point in the state quarterfinals. Going into a district, I think there was only one winning team with a winning record there. How much have you had to try to tell your girls not to pay attention? 13-15 record now, to not pay attention to that record. But then also, I think you're helped by the fact that it's the team that knocked you out last year, aren't you?
Right. You know, when you start the postseason, everybody's 0-0. It doesn't matter. They're a district champ. They had to beat somebody to get here. And when you're in the Elite Eight, everybody has something that makes them successful. And I think that their record is a little skewed in the fact that I believe they had some people out with injury. They played a very tough schedule, and you know they're peaking at the right time. They've got their kids back, and it's going to be a very good game. I'm not looking at it like looking at their record and saying, no, this is going to be easy, because it's not. And I've really tried to put that emphasis to our kids that this is another game. It's the next game on our schedule. And it just happens to be Helias, who did end our season last year. I'll be quite honest, Scott. I didn't watch that game until yesterday. I was sick about it last year. And when the season was over, I was just really, I was disappointed for our kids, because I felt like, we were the better team, but we weren't that day. And hats off to Helias. They really came out. I think the crowd really got to our kids, and it was kind of a very hostile environment. Their student crowd was loud, and Quinn was 0 for 8 from the 3. We shot 2 for 18 from the 3, and we had 22 turnovers, and we were still in the game. And so it was a 10-point, I believe we lost 42-32, and it was a game that we were still in 6 points out with 3 minutes to go. And we ended up letting them shoot free throws, trying to get back into it.
And this was on their home floor before Misha went back to the neutral sites for quarters and sectionals and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you went to
this
their
is
place.
Actually the third year, Scott, because the year that they went to the Final Four run in 24-25, the game was at Marshfield, and Marshfield beat Helias that year. So this is going to be the third consecutive time meeting up in quarters.
Nice. So a lot of familiarity there. And of course, that's this Friday night, 6:00 at Lebanon High School. So neutral floor, 20 minutes up the road from Marshfield. That's a pretty good thing, isn't it?
It is a good thing. Our crowd, our community really came out Friday night. And I think that was very important, just getting behind our girls. And I hope to have a very good following, since it's pretty close.
As I mentioned, I did come out to the semifinals at Hillcrest on Wednesday night, caught your game and the McDonough County West Plains game, and looked up there in the crowd, and there's the queen, Melody Howard, Marshfield basketball, Stacy Nunn, Stacy Shore there. Jeff needs a haircut right now. I don't know. He's
Yeah,
retired.
he's Captain Jeff. He's retired.
Yeah, he has nothing else to do. It's a good time, Jeff, to get a haircut, if you heard it from me. But no, it was just fun looking up there and seeing some of the Lady Jays of the past there supporting Marshfield basketball. That's something that, because you grew up in that program, we'll get into that here in a minute, but have you made a conscious effort to try to bring back the alums and make them feel invested in something they built?
Absolutely. I think it's very important to bring them back. We had a very nice alumni recognition event in February where I believe we had 40 plus alums back.
Wow.
And it was just good. We did it by the decades. We actually had 3 or 4 from the very first year played. And cool. Marshfield did not even play the first year that it was allowed with Title IX. They didn't play. The community wasn't really behind it. They didn't feel like girls should be playing basketball. According to Robert Vestal, he gave me all of this information that he was a junior high boy at the time. And he was talking about how people were like, girls shouldn't be playing basketball. And so the first year that they played, they only played about 10 games, I believe. And it was because there weren't very many other schools that were participating yet as well. But it started with those ladies back in the 70s. And I think it was just important. We did recognitions from every decade, and we recognized just anybody that has donned a Lady J uniform. And it was really nice. I hope to continue to have that event every year. And unfortunately, Melody and Stacy couldn't be there this year. And I told them next year they better be back. So
we need an alumni game. Let's suit them up. No?
I don't think so. I think that was the first thing I got asked by several of them. I said, we're going to have an alumni game. I said, no, an alumni recognition. If we don't need any injuries. So
they're all getting hurt playing pickleball now anyway. So let's just keep it to that. But so let's go back to your past. Of course, we touched on it, but you are a Marshfield native. You're a Marshfield alum, graduated from there. And as much as I don't like to give you credit, you were on that initial push by Marshfield Lady Jays basketball that began before Melody and Julie and the Howards and the Nuns and everybody, because you were a senior on the undefeated first state championship team as Trish Van Diggelen. And talk about the evolution of that program from the time you were a high school freshman to the time you left. How many years were you older than Melody and Julie?
Melody was a sophomore when I was a senior, and Julie was a freshman. Stacy was a junior, and Stephanie was a sophomore along with Melody. Okay.
So when did you guys kind of figure out, because back at that time, Kickapoo was really good. Sue Schubel had that program, rolling. McDonald County had just finished cleaning up the area with the triplets with Suzanne Nyender and Sue Thomas and LaDonna Wilson. And then here comes Marshfield. And when was that moment in your mind that everything in that community kind of clicked and said, hey, wait a minute, we're the power now?
I could start seeing that shift from my freshman to my sophomore year. Our freshman year, we had a very bad season. I don't believe we even got to double-digit wins. And then my sophomore year, we were 16-9, didn't win a game in districts. And then my junior year, that's when I really feel that we turned that corner. We went 25-5, and we got a taste of what success looked like and what postseason play looked like. And, I know you're going to love this when I say that loss to McDonald County think, yeah, right. That loss to McDonald County my junior year at Parkview, that left a bitter taste in our mouth. And it was like, we don't want that to happen again. And we felt like, we were right there. And then the next year, everything clicked. Our goals were bigger, and we just set out to reach them. And it was quite amazing. I don't think I realized it at the time as a 17, 18-year-old girl, the feat of going 32-0 and having an undefeated season is hard, and to win a state championship. It's one of my most favorite, if not my most favorite basketball memory. And so that's why I'm just relishing in this run that we have right now. hoping to provide some of those memories for my players I have now.
I think we could call you, instead of the godmother, maybe the grandmother of Marshfield Lady Jays basketball or something, but maybe not. It looks like that may not be the right answer.
Well, that makes me sound old, Scott. I don't know.
Yes.
It's okay.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. When did Jack Howard move the Howards from Buffalo to Marshall? What age were you then?
Oh gosh, I think they were in junior high.
Okay.
They were in junior high.
School.
No, it wasn't in high school. I believe it might have been their 8th grade year. I'm not sure, but yeah.
One of the single best administrative hires probably in basketball history was bringing Jack Howard to Marshfield with some daughters that like to play basketball, right?
Absolutely. And I welcomed it. I was ecstatic when we had these move-ins because, I mean, they just had as much passion and love for the game as I did. And there weren't a lot of people that wanted to put in the time and enjoyed it. But I felt like with those move-ins that we had with the Howards, the Garrisons, and then the local kids that we already had in our program, I think that was just a great, I agree, a great hire. I'll never forget Jack Howard just coming around as our superintendent, coming around on snow days to pick us up in his truck and say, we're going to the gym. It was not safe enough to have school, but it was safe enough for us to get in the gym and get some shots up and stuff. So that was pretty cool. I'll never forget those days and just all the times of being a Lady J with the Howards, with the Garrisons, and all of my teammates. It was just a very special time.
And then, of course, from there went on to play college basketball at what was Missouri Rolla at the time, now Missouri S&T. Very, very strong career there. Did you go up there with the intention of becoming a coach when it was all said and done, or what was your thought process entering college?
Well, when I went there, I wasn't going to be an engineer. I do tell you that. That was not the thing. I went there to be a pre-biology major. And quite honestly, when I left there, I had a history degree. And I decided to go on to Drury to work on my master's while trying to get certified to teach. I didn't want to be done coaching, or not coaching, but I didn't want to be done being around the game, because it had just been a huge part of my life. And so I thought, well, what can I do, to stay connected? And so I just started networking some of the people that I knew when I came back to the Springfield area. And, Jeannie Calhoun at Glendale, when I was at Marshfield as a player, we had some really great battles with Glendale, and she remembered me, and she's like, I just need to get you connected up here, since I was living in Springfield at the time. And she connected me with a very great person who was very influential in my life, Nyla Millison. And I worked with Nyla for, I believe, 21, 22 years as an assistant. And I just learned a lot. I grew up under her as a coach and learned a lot from her.
Your first impressions of Nyla when you first met her. I mean, here's this. I used to make her mad. I used to call her a barrel roper. That's not the proper term. It's a barrel racer. Then I think I said barrel jumper, and that wasn't right either, but it is barrel racer, right? This cowgirl from Kansas comes in, tough as nails, but loves to compete. And what were your first impressions of her?
Gosh, I will tell you, I was nervous meeting her. I'll never forget the first time I met her. And I was like, and Jeannie's like, this is so-and-so. And she was super nice and everything, but I had just heard so much about her already and her success in Kansas and in her rodeo days and everything else. But she was very welcoming to me as a 23-year-old. It's crazy to go back and think 30 plus years ago, but she was so welcoming to me. And at that point, I got thrown in practices still as a player, and that was kind of fun. And, I got to play and coach, and, we had some really good teams at that point, and I learned a lot from her, X's and O's. But I think the thing that I learned probably the most from her was just how to treat people and how to treat players. And she's one of the best people person that I know.
I had a pretty good one named Tara Mitchum back in that day
Oh,
that could play a little bit. Yeah. Is she as good
absolutely.
as anybody you've been around at the high school level?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She could just dominate a game, whether defensively, offensively, that little step through move. She did moves that people didn't know could be done. We would always get upset with officials because they would call her for so many walks a game. And I know Nyla would always preface our games with them like, hey, now this isn't a walk. Don't call it, but yes, she's one of the best high school players that I've been around. I've been around a few since then, but she still ranks up there.
So you guys go to Drury together. You build a program from scratch, turning it instantly into a winner, and very quickly into a national powerhouse, and built the foundation for what is still one of the top programs in the country in Division II. Started that with a lot of local girls, and that kind of, it started back, with girls like yourself, and then the Howards going to Missouri State and stuff, but Drury just kind of confirmed that at the D2 level, you could win and win big with Southwest Missouri talent. And that was kind of the focus at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of nice just to recruit in your backyard.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go very far.
Yeah.
Right. I think, we would go to other places, and we get there. We're like, we've got this in Southwest Missouri. Yeah. We would go to St. Louis or Kansas City and find a kid here or there. We had some pretty good ones from Jeff City and some other places in Missouri, but Southwest Missouri, I really felt like we built that program with local kids. I could just hop in the car and go 15 minutes to Nixa Republic and find what we needed. And it was really interesting when we were recruiting those kids. Sometimes they're like, I'm not going to play with that kid from that other school. Well, because they were such rivals, whether it was a Nixa Republic or a Glendale Kickapoo kid, but when they all became Lady Panthers, it seemed to work out just great.
One of the things that I noticed early on and really admired about Nyla Millicent is, you said it a little bit earlier, but she's a complete coach. She gets all aspects of it, and the PR side, the media side, the love on them a little bit side to make sure they know they're wanted and respected and everything else. She's the total package in that regard. How much of that did you glean from her in all those years? And you were ready to hit the ground running as a head coach the minute you got a chance because of your time with Nyla?
Oh, I think I a lot of my coaching style is because of her. I always think about the kid first. It's about who they are, not just about what they can do on the basketball court. And I think that, again, that is just the biggest thing that I feel like she instilled in me, not only, but some of my coaching philosophy as well. I've taken through her, and obviously being with somebody as long as I was with her and having that success, it didn't hurt taking it, because I knew what you could do with the things that we did at Drury, whether the defense, offensively. But again, you hit on it. She's that complete coach that brings out the best. That, when kids know that you really care for them, they'll go through a brick wall for you. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned from her.
Doing a great job as the AD over at Drury, but isn't it kind of sad a little bit inside that Nyla Millicent's not on a sideline still?
Yeah, I'd be her assistant in a heartbeat if she went back.
Yeah.
No, but we talk about it every once in a while, but the college landscape's so different.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever want to go back, and the fact that the NIL, the portal, and you're having to recruit your kids to keep the kids you got on your roster. It's a different game. And I know that, that wore a little bit on Nyla when she went out to George Mason, that portal thing was happening. I didn't have to deal with that much. So it is sad. I know that every once in a while she still has that itch and she wishes she was coaching, but then there's other times when you're like, wow, I'm glad I'm not on that recruiting trail in July.
Not having to mess with that anymore. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, well, Nyla and Brent, a big part of your support staff forever. You got a pretty good one there at home with Mr. Marty Marsh, a longtime coach, administrator, Mark Fisher's right hand for many years over there. Misha, time period for Marty before he retired last summer. Now he goes out and catches quail by hand and does all kinds of things for the Department of Conservation. But you guys met at Glendale back in the 90s. And I guess, could you have found a better mate in terms of loving sports and wanting to do the things that you've been able to do through your career?
Oh, I don't think so. He's been very supportive. It was hard as a young coach and just married and then having kids and then being at the college level. Marty has always been very supportive in me chasing my dreams of coaching and at different levels. And then the tables kind of turned a few years back when he wanted to chase his dreams of going to Misha, and we uprooted from Southwest Missouri and went up there for him to experience that. And that was great for him to do and to be able to retire from Misha at the end of his athletic administration career. And so I think we've really complement each other well. We can kind of be able to bounce things off of each other. And sometimes we tell each other to be quiet about sports. Sometimes I don't want to talk about it, and maybe he doesn't want to talk about it, but he's doing well in retirement. This is a whole different Marty that's wearing camo, and I had to buy him boots for Christmas. And so that, it's a lot different than the suit and tie Marty that I had for quite some time. But I think, to be able to have the careers that we've had in sports and just being able to continue to manage a family and raise two kids and still be around each other, I think it's a success.
Now, daughter Maddie that played for you at Glendale, she is in med school, or what's her status?
She's in Boston. She works for Dana-Farber Cancer Research Center. She's trying to find a cure. So she's doing clinical trials. She's in nuclear medicine, and she's enjoying her time in Boston. She's been there a couple of years now. And then Mitch is an official. I really have enjoyed that part of it, being able to see him. About a month ago, I got to go back to Rolla and watch Mitch officiate a game at my alma mater. And that was really cool to be able to see him excel and stay around the sport as well. He loves officiating college basketball, but not only that, he's doing college football as well, and pretty good high school soccer official. So I'll stay in it even when I'm done. I think I'm looking forward to it. I think he's got dreams of going to Division I at some point, and maybe I'll get to follow him around and keep around the sport.
I don't know if that's a good idea, because as competitive as you are, if they start yelling at Mitchell Marsh and your mama in the stands, you may need to go get a soda or something at that point.
Well, Scott, the first time that he officiated, I'll never forget. We were at C of O, and he may have been 20. I don't know. And these people behind us were yelling at him and just giving him so much grief. I think it was his first district game. And they just I don't know where they got these officials from. And they just kept, calling things out. And she said it again. She goes, I don't know where they got these officials from. And I just turned around to her politely and said, ma'am, that one right there that you've been yelling at came from me. And boy, did she kind of quieted down. And it was but I've learned to just be okay with it, because if he's okay with them yelling at him, then I'm going to be okay with it.
Well, the stories are legendary, and we always give Marty an audience for that, to talk about your competitive side when you're not around. I saw it out there at the district. You're in a better defensive stance now on the sidelines than you ever were as a player. So apparently what you're teaching your Lady Jays, you're actually practicing with your shuffle up and down the sideline. So I want to commend you on that. But Marty, the stories that I love are the OCD Marty stories that, guys like Jason Michael, Josh Scott loved to go in his office when he was over there and just move a pencil half a centimeter because Marty would know it was not in its place. Is that the Marty Marsh you live with?
Yes, it is. I don't think he's as bad now, but we used to have these Post-its everywhere for our cleaning lady. And they had measurements out that this far away from the edge of the buffet should sit the lamp. Okay. And all the measurements were for every lamp, for every piece, like a vase or whatever it was measured out on our bookcases, everything. And so it eventually got to the point where our cleaning lady couldn't even dust. I was like, why do we even have her? Because he was so paranoid about things being moved and everything. He'll get out the ruler. He'll measure everything precisely. I mean, we live in a nice, brand new house, and I still don't have pictures up because it is like a whole day ordeal to figure out exactly how high, how wide, and it's got to be perfect. And if you mess up, that is not cool. And so he's like, you can decorate any way you want. And sometimes he lets me do that, but then he also has to put his 2 cents in. But he's been pretty good. He's mellowed out some from his earlier years.
This new conservation job is bringing him down a little bit to normal world there. The ruler stories are great too. Has he had one, or wasn't there one that got lost and it was like the end of the world?
It got lost in our move. The blue ruler. We still haven't found it. Quite honestly, I might have thrown that thing away. I don't know.
You think it may be at Mark Fisher or Josh Scott's house, possibly?
Well, that didn't go to work. Yeah. That was a home ruler. I don't know what he used at work, but yes, those guys would always give him grief and like move things around in his office. And, I don't do that anymore, but he has things precisely. Like he's got probably 20 things on his nightstand and they're all got a place. And, that's just who he is. I just, the biggest thing that I think we talk about now are night lights. I'm like, I do not want night lights. I don't want timers. He wants timers on every lamp in the house, and he wants them to all come on at the same time. And I just I don't care. So
we
that's
started
kind of
talking basketball, and this became a counseling session.
Right.
Trish, I will send you a bill at the end of the podcast there for this. But you know what? Hey, he's a guy of detail. And right now you're trying to convince your Lady Jays basketball team that the details matter, the execution. Little segue there back to the basketball. But I mean, it's this time of year when all those things make a difference, isn't it?
It is. It's the differences in the details. It's in the execution. It's in the value of the ball. It's defensively. I think that's the biggest thing that I've really feel very proud about our team is just our defensive effort over the last few weeks and just really buying in and locking into what we have to do on that end of the court to help us win.
Well, full circle now, 40 years later, you go from playing at Marshfield and building a program to coaching at Marshfield and trying to build a program back to a level that it used to be as a state champion. And, you've worn a lot of hats, been a few stops here and there. Is this home for you now?
It is. It just feels like home when I can go into a gym and I see fans that were cheering us on in the 80s. And I can go to walk down the halls and see people I graduated high school with that are colleagues of mine, and to be able to coach some of my players who I have connections with when I was back there as a student athlete myself. And it's really fun. My 91-year-old, I believe, band director comes to games still. Wow. It's awesome. My 5th grade teacher, where I started playing with the Van Giesen Vampires, she came to a game a couple weeks ago. It's just cool to see all these people, whether it be teammates or just the connections that I've had in that community, have built me to who I am, and just to be able to be back there, it's been just very sweet.
Well, that's something special. I know that the good towns, the good programs have that. Your Skylines up in Urbana, the thing they did where they're going to bus their seniors up to the games tomorrow, which is just cool? Amazing. So cool. Walnut Grove, where everybody's named Harmon or Henry, and they just, there's 75 of them a year playing for them, and the fans all come out, and it's just, that's the Marshfield that you grew up in. It's the Marshfield you're recreating now, correct?
I feel like it. I feel like, the community has that connection with our team, and it's really fun. We went out to McDonald's a couple weeks ago to do a McDonald's night, and people from the community came out, and it just any connection that we can do. We went caroling to the elderly in Marshfield during the Christmas time. And it was just things like that. People want to be a part of it. They remember those days, and they still want to be a part of it somehow.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck. 3 more wins and you're a state champion, but I know Trish Marsh would take them one at a time. Starting with Elias Catholic Friday night at Lebanon High School, state quarterfinals in Class 5. You're the number 1 ranked team in the state. Good luck and go get a championship.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
You bet. Always my pleasure. Thanks, Trish.
Thank you.
Tricia Marsh, or Trish Marsh, as we've known her forever, doing a great job at her alma mater there, Marshfield, and of course, spent many years with her at Drury and knowing the Marsh family, just good people. And those are the kind of people we love to interview here on the show as well. So big thank you to her for her time. Also, big thank you to our sponsors, Thompson Sales. They're located at 1555 East Independence in South Springfield. The Thompson boys have been in business since 1919, and they have your largest selection of Cadillac, Buick, and GMC cars and trucks, new and used, here in the Ozarks. So go see the Thompson boys. Got a great service department to take care of your car from end of the line for the car till the time you buy a new one, and do it all over again. That's what they do at Thompson's. That's why they have repeat customers like myself, because they'll treat you like family. Remember, the Thompson boys have been dealing since 1919. Also, special thanks to Colton Steakhouse of Springfield. Had lunch there today, matter of fact, celebrating a little victory today, and had the famous, I like to call it the Puryear salad. On the menu, it's the Texas salad. Get the Texas salad with grilled chicken, have them blacken the chicken. They put the best blackening seasoning I've ever had on a chicken or a burger or whatever. And then that's a great meal there at Colton's. But you're going to get the hot rolls and the whipped butter, the peanut buckets, great burgers, great steaks, great barbecue. It's all at Colton Steakhouse, 2020 East Independence. Go tell Thomas Orr and his staff we said hello. Great meal awaiting you at Colton's. And then finally, Deadeye Gun in Sparta, our newest sponsor. They're at 7483 Main Street in Sparta. You're driving down the main drag there in Sparta. You can't miss it. You can also visit their website, deadeyegunsupply.com, to check out their selection of pistols, rifles, ammunition. If it's something involving target shooting or hunting, Jonathan and his folks at Deadeye Gun in Sparta have it. Go see them today. It's going to do it for this week's edition. Again, thanks to Trish Marsh. Best of luck to the Lady Jays, and we will see you next week on Round the Ozarks Sports Scene.